She married a poor mountain man, but he took her to his secret hidden mansion. Leela had always loved the city, with its crowded streets, tall buildings, and endless energy. She had a small apartment she adored, a cozy job at a local bookstore, and a circle of friends who made her weekends lively and fun. But somewhere deep inside, she felt a restlessness she couldn't explain. Life had become predictable, safe, and comfortable, but safe had begun to feel like a cage. She dreamed of adventure, of something extraordinary happening that would break her routine. One chilly autumn weekend, feeling an urge she could not ignore, Leela packed a small backpack and set out for the mountains. She had always loved hiking and the idea of being surrounded by nature, away from the endless noise and traffic. She wanted to feel the earth under her feet, breathe the crisp mountain air, and maybe discover something new, not just in the world around her but in herself. The trail was steeper than she had expected. Leaves crunched underfoot, and the wind whistled through the trees, carrying the faint smell of pine and damp earth. She paused to catch her breath and admire the view. The mountains stretched endlessly into the horizon, their peaks dusted with the first snow of the season. It was breathtaking, almost magical, and Leela felt a shiver of excitement run down her spine. This was the adventure she had been craving. As she carefully stepped along a narrow path, she noticed movement ahead. A man was walking in her direction, carrying a bundle of firewood. His clothes were simple, worn and patched in several places, and his boots were thick and rugged, suited for mountain life. He had a strong, silent presence, the kind that made the world seem calmer when he was near. Leela couldn't take her eyes off him. There was something different about him, something real, unpretentious, and quietly commanding. "Hello," she said cautiously, unsure if he would even respond. The man paused, a flicker of surprise in his eyes. "Hello," he replied, his voice calm and steady. There was no hint of arrogance, no attempt to impress, just honesty. He set down the bundle of firewood and offered her a polite smile. Leela introduced herself, and he told her his name was Ethan. They spoke for a few minutes, exchanging small talk about the trail, the weather, and the beauty of the mountains. But even in these brief moments, Leela sensed something unusual about him. He listened as if every word mattered. His eyes, dark and steady, seemed to see beyond the surface of things, and she felt an unexpected sense of comfort and safety in his presence. "Are you staying in the area?" she asked, curious. "Yes," he replied simply. "I live in a small cabin not far from here. It's quiet." His words were understated, but there was a warmth to them, a quiet pride that suggested he was content in his solitude. Leela found herself intrigued. There was a mystery to him, a life that seemed very different from hers, and yet somehow it felt familiar. She had always been drawn to people who carried secrets, who had stories behind their eyes. And now, she was standing in the middle of the mountains, talking to one of them. Over the next few hours, Leela and Ethan walked together along the trail. They shared small stories about their lives, laughed at little mishaps, and noticed the tiny details of the forest around them. The patterns of leaves, the sounds of birds, the way sunlight pierced through the trees. Leela felt a sense of connection that she had never experienced before. There was no judgment, no pretense, just two people enjoying the simplicity of nature and each other's company. As the sun began to dip behind the mountains, painting the sky in shades of orange and pink, Ethan invited her to see his cabin. Leela hesitated for a moment. She had imagined adventure in the mountains, but not this, meeting a stranger and stepping into his home. Yet something in his calm eyes reassured her, and she agreed. The cabin was modest, made of wood with smoke curling from the chimney. Inside, it was warm and inviting. A small fire burned in the hearth, and the scent of pine and wood smoke filled the room. Shelves lined the walls, filled with books and handcrafted items. It was clear Ethan had built this life with care, even if it was simple. Leela was struck by the contrast between the harshness of the mountains outside and the cozy comfort of this hidden home. Ethan offered her tea, and they sat by the fire, talking until darkness fell outside. The conversation turned from casual topics to deeper ones, their hopes, fears, and the paths that had led them to this moment. Leela shared stories of her city life, her dreams of adventure, and the feeling of restlessness she had carried for so long. Ethan listened patiently, never interrupting, never judging. When he spoke, his words were thoughtful and grounded, reflecting a life lived closely with nature, with challenges faced and lessons learned. There was a gentleness to him that made Leela's heart ache in a way she had never experienced. It wasn't physical attraction at first. It was the kind of connection that seeped slowly, quietly, into your soul. By the time she realized it, she was already captivated. She admired his humility, his resilience, and the way he seemed so comfortable with himself, even in a world that often demanded more. Over the next few days, Leila extended her stay. She hiked further into the mountains, exploring streams, cliffs, and hidden groves, always accompanied by Ethan. Each day revealed more about him, how he fished in the streams, crafted tools from wood, and respected the animals and the land. He had a rare ability to make ordinary things feel extraordinary, to find joy in small victories and simple pleasures. Leela found herself learning, growing, and feeling more alive than she had in years. It wasn't long before she realized she was falling in love. But the idea terrified her. Ethan lived a simple, solitary life in the mountains. She had a city life, friends, and responsibilities waiting for her back home. Was it even possible for their worlds to collide? Could love survive such differences? Yet each time she looked into his calm, dark eyes, she felt a reassurance she couldn't ignore. She felt at home. One evening, as the sun set in fiery streaks across the sky, Ethan took her to a quiet clearing overlooking the mountains. The air was still, except for the distant call of a bird and the whisper of the wind. He turned to her, his expression serious yet gentle. "There's something I need to tell you," he began, his voice steady but filled with emotion. "I know my life seems simple, even poor to some, but I want you to know that this is who I am. I can't offer riches or luxury, only this life, the mountains, the cabin, and my heart. But if you are willing, I would like to share it with you forever." Leela's heart raced. She had felt this connection, this pull toward him, since the moment they met, but hearing it spoken aloud made it real. She realized that love was not about wealth, status, or appearances. It was about trust, understanding, and sharing your life with someone who sees you completely. Without hesitation, she took his hand. "Yes," she whispered, "I want to share this life with you." Ethan's eyes softened, and he smiled for the first time in a way that made her chest ache with warmth. They embraced, the mountains around them standing witness to the beginning of something extraordinary. For the first time, Leela felt the thrill of adventure she had been longing for, not in the excitement of a city or the rush of travel, but in the quiet, steady presence of a man who understood her heart. As they sat together watching the last light fade from the peaks, Ethan leaned close. "There's something else," he said, almost in a whisper. "Something you should see if you're ready, but it's a secret and it will change everything." Leela's curiosity flared. She had already discovered so much about this man, yet now there was more, a mystery, a hidden side of him she had never imagined. Her heart pounded, a mixture of excitement and anticipation. She realized that marrying him was not the end of her adventure, it was just the beginning. The mountains were quiet, the sky darkening into a blanket of stars, and Leela felt a thrill she could not describe. She had found love, connection, and adventure all at once. And somewhere in the back of her mind, she knew that Ethan's secret would lead them into a world she could never have imagined, a world that would test their bond and reveal the depths of who they were. That night, as she lay in the cabin beside him, listening to the crackling fire and the distant call of an owl, Leela felt a profound sense of peace. She had taken a leap into the unknown, and it had brought her exactly where she was meant to be, on the edge of a new life, with a man who had captured her heart and the promise of a secret waiting to be unveiled. For the first time in her life, Leela realized that the greatest adventures were not always found in cities, travels, or excitement. They were found in the quiet moments, in trust, in love, and in the courage to take a chance on the unexpected. And tomorrow, she thought with a smile, the real adventure would begin. Life in the mountains was nothing like Leela had imagined. She had expected fresh air, quiet mornings, and peaceful nights, but the reality was far more challenging. The cabin she now called home was small and rustic, with wooden floors that creaked under her feet and a tiny stove that barely heated the space. The nearest town was miles away, and supplies had to be carefully planned. Hot showers were rare, and electricity was limited to a single generator that Ethan used sparingly. For someone who had lived in the city all her life, with its constant convenience and instant gratification, this was a shock. The first few days were difficult. Leela stumbled on uneven paths while gathering firewood, struggled to cook meals over an open flame, and constantly felt the sting of isolation. The mountains were beautiful, no doubt, but they were also harsh. The winds could be bitter, the nights frigid, and the storms unpredictable. At times, she wondered if she had made a mistake, if marrying a mountain man was more romantic in fantasy than in reality. Ethan, however, seemed completely at ease. He moved around the cabin with quiet confidence, managing the fire, cooking, and maintaining the small garden he had cultivated. He showed Leela how to chop wood safely, how to start a fire with kindling, and even how to catch fish from the stream nearby. He was patient and kind, never belittling her mistakes, but also encouraging her to try again and again until she succeeded. "You can do this," he said one morning as she struggled to light the stove. "The fire just needs patience. You can't rush it." Leela laughed, frustrated, yet secretly admired his calm demeanor. He had grown up in these mountains, and everything he did seemed natural, effortless. For her, it was a struggle, but also a learning experience, one that made her feel stronger with each passing day. She began to notice the little things. The way the sun touched the treetops in the morning, the sound of birdsong filtering through the crisp air, and the scent of pine needles after rain. It was a world she had never experienced before, and though it was hard, it began to feel like home. Despite the difficulties, Leela found joy in learning new skills. Ethan taught her to forage for edible plants, identify herbs, and even track small animals for food when necessary. She learned to be self-reliant, to appreciate the rhythm of nature, and to understand the delicate balance of life in the mountains. Each small success gave her confidence, and she began to see herself differently, not as the sheltered city girl she had once been, but as someone capable of adapting, surviving, and even thriving in a harsh environment. At the same time, Leela noticed more of Ethan's quiet complexities. He rarely spoke of his past, his family, or why he had chosen such a solitary life. He seemed content in his isolation, yet there was a depth to him that hinted at untold stories. Sometimes, when he looked out over the mountains in silence, his eyes would darken, and Leela could sense memories or thoughts he did not wish to share. She respected his privacy but was also curious. Who was this man, truly, beyond the rugged exterior and gentle smile? One day, as Leela explored the woods near the cabin, she stumbled upon a hidden path partially covered by vines and leaves. It seemed almost as if nature itself was trying to hide it. She remembered Ethan mentioning that there were secret spots in the mountains he sometimes visited, but he never elaborated. Her curiosity flared. Should she follow the path, or respect his silence? Unable to resist, she carefully made her way down the narrow trail. The path twisted and turned through thick trees, leading her to a small waterfall cascading into a crystal-clear pool. The sight was breathtaking. She knelt by the water, letting her fingers brush against the icy surface. It was pure, untouched, and magical, a secret world that existed beyond the life she had known. Suddenly, she heard footsteps behind her. Startled, she turned to see Ethan standing there, watching her with a faint smile. "You found it," he said quietly. "Not many people do." Leela felt her cheeks warm. I didn't mean to intrude," she said, feeling a mix of embarrassment and wonder. Ethan shook his head. "You're not intruding. This place is meant to be discovered by someone who is ready to see it." His voice was calm, but there was an intensity in his eyes that made her heart skip a beat. He stepped closer and extended his hand. "Come, I'll show you something else." Curiosity overcame hesitation, and Leela took his hand. He led her along another narrow trail, twisting deeper into the forest than she had ever ventured. The further they went, the more she felt as though she had entered a different world, a world untouched by modern life, where time moved slowly and nature ruled. Finally, they reached a small clearing surrounded by tall trees. Hidden among the branches and vines was a gate, almost invisible, leading to a property Leela could not yet see. Ethan pushed it open, revealing a path lined with flowers and shrubs, perfectly maintained despite its secrecy. Leela's eyes widened in astonishment. "What is this place?" she whispered, barely believing what she was seeing. Ethan's expression was serious. "This is my home in a way most people don't know. There's more than what you see in the cabin, but it's a secret, one I haven't shared with anyone before." Leela felt a rush of emotions, curiosity, awe, disbelief. She had married a man she thought was living simply, yet here was a hidden side of him she could never have imagined. She looked at Ethan, searching his face for answers. "Why didn't you tell me?" she asked softly. "Because this life," he said, glancing back toward the hidden gate, "isn't about showing off. I chose simplicity for a reason. I wanted a life connected to the mountains, to nature, to myself. But now I want to share it with you, if you're ready." Leela felt her heart swell. She had always wanted adventure, but this was more than she could have imagined. She realized that Ethan's life was not simple poverty. It was intentional simplicity, a choice to live authentically and fully, away from the distractions of the modern world. Over the next few days, Leela settled into a new rhythm. She helped Ethan tend to the hidden garden, learning to grow vegetables and herbs. They explored the surrounding forests together, discovering hidden streams, caves, and groves. Each day brought new challenges, but also new joys. Leela began to appreciate the quiet strength it took to live in this world, the patience, the discipline, and the deep respect for nature. Their relationship deepened in ways Leela had never expected. Love was not declared with grand gestures but built slowly, quietly, in shared tasks and small acts of care. Ethan would leave fresh water by her bedside in the morning, or notice when she was tired and encourage her to rest. Leela, in turn, learned to anticipate his needs, help with chores, and share in the responsibilities of mountain life. Their bond became rooted in trust, respect, and a deep understanding of one another. Yet, the mystery of Ethan's hidden world lingered in her mind. What else was he keeping from her? Why did he guard this secret so carefully? Her curiosity was a constant hum in the background, a whisper that told her their story was only beginning. One evening, as the sun dipped behind the peaks, painting the sky in golden and pink hues, Ethan took Leela to a high overlook. From there, the entire mountain range stretched before them, vast and magnificent. Leela could see the rivers winding through valleys, the trees glowing in the last light, and the quiet majesty of a world untouched by modern chaos. "I wanted to show you this," Ethan said softly. "It's a reminder of why I chose this life. Everything up here feels alive, true, and free. I wanted you to see it, to understand why I live the way I do." Leela leaned against him, taking in the beauty of the mountains and the warmth of his presence. She realized that this was exactly the adventure she had been searching for, not a rush of excitement or danger, but the discovery of a life that was real, honest, and full of meaning. That night, as they returned to the cabin, Leela felt a sense of peace she had never known. The mountains were still, the stars bright, and the air filled with a quiet magic that spoke of hidden wonders yet to be revealed. She had married a man she thought was poor and simple, yet his life held secrets, depth, and richness she was only beginning to understand. And somewhere deep in the forest, a hidden path waited, one that would lead her to even greater surprises, mysteries, and revelations. Leela knew that their journey together was only beginning, and the adventure of love, trust, and discovery would continue to unfold with each passing day. For the first time, she understood that life's greatest treasures were not always obvious. Sometimes they were hidden, waiting for those brave enough to explore, to trust, and to love with an open heart. And Leela was ready to take that leap. The morning air in the mountains was crisp, carrying the scent of pine and earth. Leela woke before sunrise, as she often did now, and looked out the small cabin window. The world outside was still and quiet, with mist curling among the trees and birds beginning their morning songs. She had grown to love these moments of peace, where nothing existed except the mountains, the sky, and the soft light of dawn. But today, there was a strange excitement in the air, a feeling that something extraordinary was about to happen. Ethan entered the cabin with his usual calm presence, carrying a small backpack. "Ready?" he asked, his dark eyes sparkling with a quiet intensity. Leela nodded, curiosity flaring in her chest. She had been thinking about the hidden path she had discovered days before, the one behind the waterfall, and now Ethan seemed to be leading her to something she could not yet imagine. They walked together through the forest, the path winding and narrow. Leela's boots crunched on the fallen leaves, and the sunlight dappled through the trees, creating patterns on the ground. The trail was familiar to Ethan, and he moved with the ease of someone who had walked it 100 times. Leela followed closely, her heart pounding with anticipation. After a while, they reached the waterfall. The water crashed down into the pool below, sending a fine mist into the air. The hidden path Leela had discovered was here, partially covered with vines and fallen branches. Ethan gently pushed them aside and smiled at her. "This is where it begins," he said. "Not everyone sees it. Not everyone is meant to." Leela felt her pulse quicken. She had no idea what lay beyond this hidden trail, but the thrill of discovery made her hands tremble slightly. Together, they stepped carefully along the path, which twisted through thick trees and over moss-covered stones. The sounds of the waterfall faded behind them, replaced by the soft rustle of leaves and the distant calls of birds. After walking for what felt like hours but was probably only minutes, the forest opened into a large clearing. Leela stopped, her breath catching in her throat. Before her stood a mansion, grand, elegant, and completely unexpected. It was surrounded by high stone walls covered in ivy, with towers that reached toward the sky and large windows that reflected the sunlight. The architecture was unlike anything she had seen in the mountains, a mixture of classic elegance and hidden grandeur. She turned to Ethan, her eyes wide. This is yours?" she asked, disbelief evident in her voice. Ethan nodded, his expression calm but serious. "It is, but it has been hidden for a reason. My family built it generations ago, and it was meant to remain secret. I chose to live simply in the cabin because this is not the life I wanted, but I thought you should see it." Leela's mind struggled to process what she was seeing. The man she had married, the poor mountain man she had assumed had only a modest cabin, was in fact the heir to a hidden mansion, a life of luxury that existed entirely apart from the world she knew. She stepped closer to the gates, running her fingers along the smooth stone, marveling at the beauty and the mystery of it. Ethan led her through the gates, and Leela gasped as she saw the gardens. They were perfectly maintained, filled with flowers of every color, sculpted hedges, and stone paths that wound through the greenery. A fountain bubbled in the center, and birds flitted among the trees as if they were aware that this was a place apart from the ordinary world. It's incredible, Leela whispered, turning to him. Why didn't you ever tell me? Ethan's eyes softened. Because this is not who I am, not really. I wanted to live in the mountains, to be close to nature, to live honestly and simply. The mansion, it is part of my past, a part of my family's history, but it is not who I am today. I wanted you to love me for me, not for this place. Leela felt a mixture of emotions, shock, awe, admiration, and a little fear. She had always valued honesty above all else, and while Ethan had been honest about who he had withheld the secret. And yet, looking at him now, she realized that his choice had been made out of love and care, to ensure that she would see the true him first. Ethan led her inside, and Leela could hardly believe her eyes. The mansion's interior was magnificent, with high ceilings, polished wooden floors, and walls adorned with paintings and antiques. Chandeliers hung from the ceilings, casting a warm glow over the rooms. Every detail reflected care, wealth, and a life that had been hidden from the world. This place, it's unbelievable, Leela said, moving from room to room, her fingers brushing against the furniture, the intricate carvings, and the shelves filled with books and artifacts. I had no idea. Ethan watched her quietly, a small smile playing on his lips. Most people don't. That is the point of hiding it. It was never meant to impress anyone. It was meant to exist quietly, untouched, a private world. As they explored the mansion, Leela began to notice the contrast between this life and the one she had shared with Ethan in the cabin. Here was luxury, elegance, and history. In the cabin, there was simplicity, survival, and authenticity. And yet, both places reflected him. One was a relic of the past, a hidden inheritance. The other was the life he had chosen, the life that defined who he was today. They reached a balcony overlooking the mountains, and Leela paused, taking in the view. From here she could see the peaks stretching endlessly, the forests below, and the rivers winding through the valleys. It was breathtaking, almost unreal. I don't even know what to say, she admitted, turning to him. You don't have to say anything, Ethan replied gently. I wanted you to see it, to understand that there is more to life than what we see on the surface. But I also wanted you to see that this is not the life I chose. The life I chose is the one with you, in the mountains, living simply, honestly, and together. Leela's heart swelled. She realized that wealth, status, and luxury meant nothing if they were not accompanied by love, trust, and companionship. She had married Ethan because of who he was, not because of what he had. And now, seeing this hidden side of him, she understood that he had chosen her life intentionally, a life that reflected values and love rather than material wealth. Over the next few days, they explored more of the mansion together. Leela was amazed at the hidden rooms, the library filled with rare books, and the collection of artifacts that told stories of generations past. Ethan shared small details about his family's history, careful to focus on what was necessary, what would help her understand but not overwhelm. Despite her amazement, Leela felt a new challenge arise. She wondered why Ethan had never spoken of this before, why he had lived in the cabin while owning such a magnificent place. Part of her felt hurt, even betrayed, though she knew it was not true betrayal. She struggled with the complexity of his choices, trying to reconcile the man she loved with the life he had hidden. One evening they sat in the mansion's library, the fire crackling in the hearth. Leela finally voiced her thoughts. I love you, Ethan, and I trust you. But why? Why live in the cabin all these years if this was yours? Ethan looked into the fire for a moment, then back at her. Because wealth and luxury don't define happiness. This mansion is beautiful, yes, but it is also a symbol of the past, of expectations and pressures I didn't want to live by. The mountains, the cabin, that is my life. That is who I am. I wanted you to see me, not the mansion. I wanted you to choose me for who I am, not for what I have. Leela felt tears prick at her eyes. She understood now. His choice had been a gift, a way to ensure their love was genuine. She reached out and took his hand, squeezing it gently. "I choose you, Ethan, always. No matter where we are or what we have." He smiled, relief and warmth evident in his expression. "And I choose you, Leela. This life, with all its challenges and wonders, is ours together." As the night deepened, they explored more of the mansion quietly, discovering small surprises. A hidden music room, a balcony overlooking the forests, and a small greenhouse filled with flowers and herbs. Every discovery deepened Leela's appreciation for Ethan, not just as a man of mystery and depth, but as someone who had created a life of beauty and meaning, hidden from the world for good reason. By the time they returned to the cabin, Leela felt a mixture of awe, love, and curiosity. She had married a man she thought was living a simple life, only to discover a secret mansion that revealed a world she could never have imagined. And yet she loved him all the more, not because of the mansion, but because of the choices he had made, the man he was, and the life they shared. Leela realized that love was not about wealth, secrets, or appearances. It was about trust, understanding, and discovering the depths of each other's hearts. And as she drifted to sleep that night, she knew that this was only the beginning of their journey, one filled with mysteries, discoveries, and adventures beyond anything she had ever imagined. Somewhere deep in the mansion, hidden paths and secrets waited to be revealed. Leela knew that together, she and Ethan could face whatever came next, and that their love would be stronger for it. The mountains outside were quiet, the stars shining brightly above, and Leela felt a thrill of excitement. Tomorrow, she thought, the real adventure would begin, and she was ready for it. Life in the mountains had settled into a steady rhythm for Leela and Ethan. The mornings were filled with sunlight streaming through the trees, and the evenings with quiet conversations by the cabin fire. Leela had grown more confident in her new life. She could chop wood without fear, start a fire without hesitation, and navigate the forest paths with ease. She loved the simplicity of it, the sense of accomplishment that came with every small task. And yet, despite this peace, a new tension was quietly approaching, one that neither of them could have predicted. It began one late afternoon, as Leela was gathering fresh herbs from the cabin garden. A faint noise reached her ears, the crunch of boots on gravel. She paused, her senses alert. "Ethan," she called softly, but there was no reply. The sound grew closer, deliberate, almost intrusive. Her heart began to race. Ethan appeared at the cabin door, his expression guarded. "Someone is here," he said simply. "I didn't expect them so soon." "Who is it?" Leela asked, anxiety creeping into her voice. "Someone from my past," he said, his tone careful. "It's nothing dangerous, but they could disrupt things if we aren't careful." Before she could ask more, the gate creaked open, and a tall man stepped onto the property. He wore fine clothes, polished boots, and a confident air that immediately set Leela on edge. His eyes flicked over the cabin and then rested on Ethan with a mix of recognition and surprise. "Ethan," the man said, his voice smooth but commanding. "It's been a long time." Ethan's jaw tightened slightly. "It has. What brings you here?" The man smiled faintly, but it did not reach his eyes. "Business matters, family matters. I need to speak with you." Leela watched silently, unsure what to do. She had never seen Ethan so tense. The easy calm he always carried seemed to vanish in an instant, replaced by a quiet, controlled alertness. She realized this visitor was not just a stranger. He carried authority, history, and perhaps even danger. Ethan gestured toward the cabin. "Come inside. It's private." The man followed, and Leela stepped back, unsure whether to stay or leave. Ethan noticed her hesitation. "Stay," he said quietly. "It's safe. Just watch." Inside, the tension was palpable. The visitor sat in a chair, his posture rigid while Ethan stood, his hands relaxed but his gaze steady. Leela felt as though she had stepped into a world she did not understand, a world of hidden legacies, expectations, and secrets that Ethan had never shared. "I've come to discuss the mansion," the man began. "It's part of the family's estate. There are decisions to be made regarding ownership, maintenance, and public knowledge. You've been living in isolation, but that cannot continue indefinitely." Ethan listened carefully, nodding but saying nothing at first. Leela noticed the subtle tension in his jaw, the way his eyes flicked briefly toward her as if seeking reassurance or solidarity. She realized that this man's arrival could change everything, could disrupt the life they had built together. Finally, Ethan spoke. "I understand, but my choice was clear. I wanted to live simply in the mountains, away from public scrutiny. The mansion exists, yes, but it does not define my life or my choices. My priorities are different now." The visitor's eyes narrowed. "Priorities? You're ignoring responsibility. The estate cannot remain hidden forever. Others have a right to know about it, to claim their share, to understand what exists here." Leela felt a knot in her stomach. She had never imagined that the mansion, which had seemed like a magical secret, could bring conflict and tension. She looked at Ethan, who remained calm but firm, and realized that the life they loved so much was fragile, dependent on his ability to navigate not just nature, but people from his past. Days passed and the visitor remained on the property, consulting with Ethan, examining the mansion and taking careful notes. Leela tried to stay busy, helping Ethan with chores, exploring the surrounding forest, and maintaining the cabin, but she could not shake the feeling of unease. She noticed how Ethan's mood shifted when dealing with the visitor. He was polite, composed, and professional, but the weight of obligation pressed on him. Leela could sense that this man was not merely a business associate. He was someone who could disrupt their lives if Ethan's decisions did not align with expectations. One afternoon, Leela approached Ethan while he tended to the garden. "Ethan, are we going to lose this life? The mountains, the cabin, us?" she asked, her voice trembling slightly. Ethan paused, wiping his hands on a cloth. He looked at her, eyes softening. "No, Leela. This life is ours, but we have to face the past to protect it. The mansion, the family, the visitor, they are part of my history. We cannot ignore it, but we also cannot let it define us." Leela nodded, though anxiety still churned in her stomach. She trusted Ethan completely, yet the presence of this outsider reminded her that their peaceful existence was not untouchable. She realized that love alone could not protect them. They needed strategy, patience, and unity. The following days brought small challenges that tested their bond. The visitor questioned decisions Ethan had made regarding the mansion, suggesting renovations, public access, or even selling parts of the estate. Each suggestion clashed with Ethan's vision of simplicity and privacy. Leela watched as he calmly countered every argument, explaining why he had chosen isolation, how the mansion was a private sanctuary, and why their life in the mountains mattered more than wealth or recognition. Leela admired his composure and strength. She realized that love was not just about shared smiles or quiet evenings. It was about facing adversity together, supporting each other through uncertainty, and defending the life they had built. She stood by Ethan during these discussions, offering small but meaningful support, fetching notes, helping organize information, and lending a voice when needed. Despite the tension, there were moments of respite. Ethan would take Leela on walks through hidden trails, reminding her of why they loved the mountains. They discovered secret groves, climbed to overlooks with breathtaking views, and shared quiet conversations by streams. In these moments, the weight of the visitor's presence seemed to lift, and Leela felt the love and connection that had brought them together. One evening, as the sun dipped behind the mountains, Ethan took Leela to the balcony overlooking the mansion gardens. "I wanted to show you something," he said, his voice soft. "Even with challenges, even with the past intruding, this is ours. We chose this life together, and no one can take that away." Leela looked around. taking in the hidden beauty of the mansion, the mountains stretching endlessly, and the quiet strength of Ethan by her side. She realized that life would always have obstacles, unexpected visitors, and moments of doubt. But it was not the challenges that defined happiness, it was how they faced them together. The visitors' presence lingered for a few more days, each interaction testing patience, trust, and understanding. Leela witnessed Ethan negotiate calmly, defend their choices, and maintain dignity without sacrificing kindness. She realized that love was not passive. It required courage, resilience, and unwavering loyalty. Finally, the visitor left, satisfied with Ethan's decisions, but clearly aware that his life was not fully aligned with the family's expectations. Leela and Ethan returned to the quiet routine of the mountains, but something had changed. They had faced conflict together, navigated tension, and emerged stronger, more united, and more deeply in love. That night, as they sat by the fire in the cabin, Leela rested her head on Ethan's shoulder. "We did it," she whispered. "We kept our life, our home, our peace." Ethan kissed her forehead gently. "Yes, but this is only one challenge. Life will bring more, unexpected and difficult, but I promise you, as long as we are together, we can face anything." Leela smiled, feeling warmth and reassurance. She understood now that love was not just about joy and adventure. It was about standing together in uncertainty, protecting what mattered, and never losing sight of each other. In the days that followed, Leela and Ethan returned to their routines with renewed appreciation. The mansion remained a secret world, beautiful but distant from their daily lives. The mountains, the cabin, and their shared moments became even more precious. Every hike, every meal, and every quiet evening together reminded them of the choices that had brought them here, the courage to trust, to love, and to face challenges as one. Leela realized that life in the mountains was not about avoiding difficulty. It was about embracing it, learning from it, and growing stronger together. She had entered this life expecting adventure, but she discovered something far more valuable, a partnership built on love, trust, and resilience. And as she lay beside Ethan that night, listening to the wind whisper through the trees and the distant call of an owl, Leela felt a quiet certainty. No matter what challenges the future might bring, they would face them together, their bond unshakable, their hearts aligned, and their love stronger than any obstacle. The mountains were still, the stars bright, and Leela understood that life's greatest adventures were not always found in discovery or wealth, but in connection, trust, and the courage to stand together, even when the world tried to intrude. Tomorrow, she thought, life would continue, full of surprises and challenges, and she was ready with Ethan by her side for whatever came next. After the tension of the visitor's arrival had passed, life in the mountains slowly returned to its quiet rhythm. The mornings were crisp and bright, filled with the songs of birds and the smell of fresh pine. The evenings brought the gentle hush of the forest and the warmth of the cabin fire. Leela had grown stronger, more confident, and more attuned to the rhythms of mountain life. But deep down, she knew that the experiences of the past days had changed both her and Ethan in ways that would shape their future together. One morning, as they tended the garden together, Leela noticed a sparkle in Ethan's eyes, a hint of excitement that she had not seen in a while. "What is it?" she asked, brushing soil from her hands. Ethan smiled, a small, knowing smile. "I've been thinking. The mansion, we have kept it hidden, private for so long, but there are things in the world that I think you should see and perhaps even be part of. Not everyone, just a few people we trust." Leela tilted her head, curiosity flaring. She had never imagined stepping fully into that hidden world again. Yet there was a thrill in knowing that Ethan wanted to share more of himself and his history with her, not just in secret, but openly. Over the next few days, Ethan gradually introduced Leela to the mansion, exploring areas they had not yet seen. He showed her the music room, where sunlight poured over polished instruments, the library filled with rare and ancient books, and the greenhouse bursting with flowers and herbs. Each room told a story, not just of wealth, but of history, of family, and of care. Leela was amazed, not by the grandeur, but by the thoughtfulness and effort Ethan's family had put into creating this hidden sanctuary. One evening, as the sun set over the mountains, Ethan led Leela to the balcony overlooking the gardens. The sky was painted in deep oranges and purples, and the mountains stretched endlessly in the distance. "I want you to know," he said softly, taking her hand, "that this life, the mountains, the cabin, the mansion, it's all ours. I never wanted to hide who I am from you, only to ensure that our love is genuine. And now, I want us to decide together what comes next." Leela's heart swelled with emotion. She realized that what mattered most was not the mansion, the wealth, or the secrets. It was their connection, their trust, and the life they had built together. She squeezed his hand. "I trust you, Ethan. I love this life, all of it, and I choose us." In the weeks that followed, they began to restore parts of the mansion for use in ways that complemented their mountain life. The rooms became spaces for learning, relaxation, and quiet joy. They kept the balance between simplicity and elegance, ensuring that the mansion enhanced their life rather than changing its essence. Leela felt a deep sense of accomplishment as she helped plan the restoration, arrange flowers in the greenhouse, and organize the library. Each task was a way of leaving a mark, of making the hidden mansion truly theirs. Their love deepened in ways that were quiet but profound. They shared laughter over small mishaps, quiet moments of reflection by the fire, and gentle gestures that spoke volumes of their bond. Leela learned more about Ethan's past, not in the form of long stories or heavy revelations, but in moments of honesty, fleeting memories, and insights shared over tea or during walks in the forest. Each detail strengthened her admiration and love for him, revealing a man of depth, integrity, and quiet strength. One afternoon, while exploring a secret grove near the mansion, Leela stumbled upon a hidden letter tucked into the bark of an old tree. The handwriting was elegant, flowing, and unmistakably from a past generation. It spoke of family legacy, trust, and the importance of safeguarding the mansion. Leela brought it to Ethan, who read it carefully, his eyes softening. "This is part of my family's history," he explained. "They wanted this place to remain private, untouched, and respected. It was meant for those who understand its value, not wealth or status, but love and care." Leela felt a profound sense of connection to Ethan, his family, and the hidden world he had inherited. She realized that love was not just between two people. It was also about honoring the past, understanding responsibility, and making choices together that reflected both hearts. As the months passed, they continued to live in harmony, balancing the simplicity of mountain life with the hidden elegance of the mansion. They hiked through forests, tended the cabin and gardens, and explored the mansion at their own pace. Each day brought discoveries, small joys, and a deeper understanding of one another. Leela felt stronger, happier, and more alive than ever before. One evening, as they sat together on the balcony of the mansion, Ethan spoke softly. "Do you remember when we first met in the forest?" Leela smiled, leaning against him. "I do. I never imagined it would lead here to all of this." Ethan nodded. "I wanted you to know that life is full of surprises. We cannot always control what comes, but we can choose how we respond, who we trust, and what we value. I chose you, Leela, and together we can face anything." Leela's eyes filled with tears of happiness. She realized that the greatest adventure of her life was not the mountains, the cabin, or even the hidden mansion. It was love, trust, and the courage to face the unknown together. She took Ethan's hand, holding it tightly. "I choose you every day, and I'm ready for whatever comes next." From that moment, their life became a harmonious blend of adventure, discovery, and peace. They hosted only a few trusted friends at the mansion, sharing the hidden world without exposing it to unnecessary scrutiny. They celebrated small victories, milestones, and quiet evenings together, knowing that their love was stronger for the challenges they had faced. Leela often reflected on the journey that had brought her here. She had left the city in search of adventure, never expecting to find love, a hidden mansion, and a life that was both simple and extraordinary. She realized that the mountains had taught her resilience, patience, and the beauty of simplicity, while Ethan had taught her trust, loyalty, and the depth of human connection. Together, they had faced challenges, confronted secrets, and emerged stronger. One crisp morning, as they walked hand in hand through the forest, Leela paused to look around. The sun filtered through the trees, the mountains stretched endlessly, and the quiet beauty of nature surrounded them. She turned to Ethan, a smile lighting her face. "I never thought life could be this full, this beautiful," she said softly. Ethan smiled back, his eyes reflecting the golden light of the morning. "Life is what we make of it, Leela, and together we've made something extraordinary." In the evenings, they would sit by the fire in the cabin or the mansion's library, talking, laughing, and dreaming about the future. They explored hidden corners of the mansion, discovered new trails in the mountains, and shared quiet moments that reminded them why they had chosen each other. Love, they realized, was not about perfection, wealth, or grandeur. It was about connection, understanding, and the courage to face life's uncertainties together. As the seasons changed, Leela and Ethan continued to grow together. The mountains remained their sanctuary, the mansion their hidden treasure, and their love the foundation of everything. They celebrated the simple joys of life, harvesting herbs, cooking meals, watching sunsets, and sharing laughter, while also honoring the beauty and history of the mansion. One evening, as they stood together on the mansion's balcony, looking out over the mountains bathed in the golden light of sunset, Ethan took Leela's hand. "We've faced many surprises," he said, "and there will be more, I'm sure. But I know one thing, we will face them together." "Always," Leela rested her head against his shoulder, feeling warmth and safety. "Always," she whispered. She realized that life's greatest adventures were not measured in wealth, fame, or grandeur. They were measured in love, trust, and the courage to face the unknown with someone by your side. The mountains were still, the forests quiet, and the stars began to shine as night fell. Leela knew that whatever the future held, they had built something unbreakable. A life of adventure, love, and trust, hidden away from the world, yet full of meaning and joy. And as they watched the moon rise over the peaks, Leela smiled. She had married a man she thought was simple, only to discover a hidden world, a secret mansion, and a life more extraordinary than she could have imagined. But most importantly, she had found love, real, deep, and enduring. Together, they faced the mountains, the mansion, and the unknown, knowing that life's greatest treasures were not in what could be seen or measured, but in the bond they shared. And with that bond, they were ready for any adventure, any challenge, and any joy that life might bring. The mountains whispered around them, the stars twinkled above, and Leela knew with certainty that this was only the beginning of a lifetime of love, discovery, and happiness.